I think they are the core of all our medical programs. Our doctors and our nurses.
To take care of a chronically ill person at home. It is not everybody's cup of tea.
Why did Metta Welfare Association start Metta Medical Care?
Back then, when we started this, palliative care was very unheard of. Nobody knows what is palliative care, and nobody talks about death because that is a taboo. So that's why we started this home hospice. And the reason why we also started home hospice and not in an institution of things, like with wards and with beds and all that, was because we realized that end life is a very intimate thing for the person, the beneficiary himself or herself. Therefore, we prefer, or we rather our elderly to age in place, to also have this thing happen at home and not in an institution of things. So therefore we started off with home hospice. Yeah.
There is the trend that medical care and home, the nursing care is very important. In addition, we know that with our aging population, by the year 2030, we would have about 1 in 5 of the Singapore population above the age of 65. So I think in this situation, it is an enormous healthcare problem that will be facing coming. And therefore, because of that, we will really need to plan the care for this group of people of our population. And I think the basic plan of healthcare is actually should be moving away, from hospital-based and slowly going into step-down care, and then to community, and then to the home management.
How do these services help the community?
Coincidentally, if you look at the whole spectrum of Metta's program and services, it's kind of like focusing a lot on the IDs, what we call the intellectually disabled and autistic kids and adults. So if you look at our range of programs, is literally cradle to the grave. We have a preschool that looks at children 0 to 6. This focuses on children with global development delay, or children diagnosed with autism, or children with speech delay, and therefore they need therapy and they need help. And then we have a special needs school that looks after children diagnosed with mild intellectual disability and autism. And then we have alumni program that looks after the kids to make sure they are gainfully employed or gainfully engaged after they leave school age 18. And then we have 2 day activity center for the low IQ adults, 18 to 55. Similarly, we have a residential home for the same group of beneficiary who are residents in the home. So they stay there 24/7. Then we have the medical of things as they age. That's where we go into the home care of things. And we also have a rehab center meant for elderly with stroke, or stricken with stroke, or with fall risk. So they need help on rehabilitation. And of course, we end with the home hospice. That's where we receive beneficiaries with a diagnosis of less than 12 months. Or rather, the whole spectrum of program is quite important for us because we are able to ensure the life needs of this person with disability.
In your opinion, what are the roles played by the nurses and doctors in Metta medical care?
And they are in the front line, and especially so during this pandemic. So while all of us are working from home, they are on the front line, facing the beneficiaries and facing their caregivers, giving them the advice as well. So I think I cannot emphasize enough that we, as a nation, we are aging. We have an aging population, and that applies globally as well. So I think our nurses and doctors play a very critical role in trying to advocate healthy habits and also how we manage the aging population in the community. I think in Metta, you realize our medical programs are kind of like a boutique size. We are not big like mega like a hospital per se or a nursing home per se, because we believe that towards the elderly part of things, the holistic care is very important. It's not just on medical needs, but it is also on the psychosocial needs, because a lot of elderly are living, most of them that we serve are living alone. So it is really a very holistic care and providing that listening ear to all these elderly, engaging them and making sure that they don't fall into a double whammy thing. So besides their medical condition, they have this psychosocial issue, then it's a double whammy thing, Then we don't want them to feel down, depressed, suicidal, and things like that. Yeah.
The nurse actually play a central role in this aspect. Because, nurse would take care of the patient personal care, and the nurses will also help to change the tubes and so on for the feeding and so on. The urinary catheter, the wound infection, do the wound dressing and so on. This is only the personal care. Then what about the caregiver? You have to empower the caregiver to learn the skill, the basic skill, to help to take care of this patient, whether be it a domestic helper or their own related family members. It is a long, tedious 24/7 in many instances. Therefore, the caregivers also has got a lot of mentally emotional problem that you cannot continue and continue and continue. And therefore, the nurses has got the duty to train them, to educate them, and also to support them. The nurses, other than organizing the training and all that, they also coordinate if there is a need for the doctor to come in. And that's where the home medical care comes in. The nurses also do a lot of coordination. The patient may require physiotherapy to get them out of the bed, may need occupational therapy to train them for certain facilities so that they can make use of that. Thirdly, you may need a dietitian to advise on the diet. The role played by doctor, it is if I can say, yeah, I'm a doctor, so I can say that it is less important than the nurses. In a sense, because the nurses is really central. The doctors, it is more of a supportive care for the patient. The doctor comes in to assess the medical status in case the patient deteriorated. So the doctor comes in here will need to assess or whether we can give some form of therapy before we move patient back to hospital. So, and doctor can also reassure the caregivers, and if it is not an emergency, not acute, and therefore can be treated at home, and reassure them. And the doctor will do a frequent visit together in addition to the nurses who visit it as frequently as it is possible, necessary.
From your perspective, how do you think the community can step up to help this group of people undergoing palliative care?
Okay, I think right now with the evolving situation globally, community can provide an extra pair of eyes and hands to the palliative care families. For example, if you see your this neighbor, they open the door most of the time, you know. Therefore, over the last few days, you don't see the door being open, and they're quiet. So what happens? So can you knock the door and find out, hey, auntie, are you there? Or uncle, are you there? Are you okay? So that kind of community camaraderie is important. Yeah.